You know, so this is going to sound really left field for me. The question is incorrect. I'll tell you why. When we speak in our indigenous Islamicate languages, we would never ask the question of the Islamicness of a particular governing institution. The word Islamic is a very Anglo-centric word. If you're to ask someone, what does it mean for the Ottomans to be Islamic? What is being asked here? You're fundamentally asking, are they Muslim or Kafir? That's what you're asking, I guess, right?
Yes.
Because here, I mean, are the Ottomans Islamic? If you said that, it doesn't make sense, actually. The question doesn't make sense. Well, the Ottomans are as Islamic as anyone else that came before them. Did the Ottomans implement Sharia any differently than anyone else that came before them? It's like saying, did Salahuddin Ayyubi implement Sharia? Did Nuruddin Zengi implement Sharia? Did the Mamluks implement Sharia? The Seljuks? Now, these are entities, what I'm talking about, they're not Khilafah, okay? But would we ask the question of Nuruddin's commitment to the implementation of the Sharia? We wouldn't ask that question.
Sure.
So what is being asked in regards to the Ottomans being Islamic in that context? And let's break it down. Pre-Khilafah and post-Khilafah. Pre-Khilafah, we have a very different Ottoman entity. So from Orhan Ghazi, Osman Ghazi, and so forth, until the conquest of Istanbul from Fatih's period, you can say that these are small principalities that are Sharia compliant and are working towards creating a state in which, or a governmental structure in which they are in adherence to the Sharia principles. But are they a Khilafah? No. You know, we have a caliphate in Cairo under the Mamluks, which is the Abbasid Caliphate. Fatih's conquest of Istanbul, still an imperial power, still not a caliphate. But is Fatih working towards implementing Sharia? Of course he is. But what do we mean by Sharia? Are we talking about the Had? Are we talking about the jizya? Are we talking about recognizing that the Mamlukis are in charge of the Khilafah in Cairo? Like it changes from time to time. So the point I'm making, I'm trying to problematize this question in particular for many Muslims, because they ask it very flippantly and they don't really know what they're asking, which is that, are the Ottomans Islamic? And this question I only hear from Western Muslims. I don't hear these types of questions in Muslim countries because we don't have this type of vocabulary. When I speak to Muslims in Muslim countries, they don't ask the question of looking at people in the past and asking, were they Islamic or not? Now, my point is, to answer what I think people are asking me, were the Ottomans throughout their history compliant towards the general principles of Islam? Yes. Were the Ottomans compliant in recognizing that the Sharia was the main worldview and legal system from which they took their rulings from? Yes. Did they create rulings that were independent from the Sharia at times? Of course they did, which we call the Qanuns and Siyasa. But they were all still under the gaze of the Sharia. And this is a different system. And this is a conversation regarding fiqh, actually. We see this Qanun culture, which we see in the Ottomans and we see in other parts of Islamic history, which has been executed before in terms of the executive leader, what they can do, what they can't do. But these were never in contradiction to the Sharia. And these were never in contradiction to the general ethos of what the Sharia was. Now, the next question I'm assuming that then people would claim is that the Ottomans did things which were haram or not in accordance with the principles of the Sharia. Yes, that's no different than anyone else in Islamic history. There have been transgressions by various different peoples in the Ottoman domains. That has happened throughout Islamic history by hundreds of Muslims who are in positions of power and authority and so forth. That needs to be placed within this particular context. What is important, however, though, is, and I say this about Islamic civilization, not just Ottoman civilization, but Islamic, is that whenever Muslims, by and large, digressed from Islam as the major principle from which they saw themselves in the world, there was always a particular culture that brought them back to the center. So they never escaped what you could call the guise of Islam long enough. So when a transgression was made, it could be done over a couple of generations, but then it would always be a particular culture that would pull it back to the center and say, this is unacceptable. This is not the way it's done. And this is throughout Islam.